All right, ladies and gentlemen, we hear the blues music in the distance. Yes, indeed, as it fades away into the sunset. Well, all right, ladies and gentlemen, Watch Well is my name, and Natural Philosophy is my game. And this show is being shot here shortly before Thanksgiving, and we got a kind of a real ragtag production here going on today. Here I'm losing my tie, it's falling down. And we're going to talk about a few little silly things. I haven't got a show in here in a while, so we have to get one in so people don't forget about who Watch Well is. Okay, we'll have our P.O. Box on the screen. There we go. See, my thing is falling off. We have our P.O. Box on the screen, and we'll have the show time so you can see for your thing. You're telling me where to look. Yeah, this is supposed to look like a class. There, I think look there. All right, so we'll have that information for you on the thing. I got my trigonometry thing here. I got that left on from last time, so I'm going to pose a little bit of a problem for some of the people here that want to do a little trig, because I have to have my mandatory mathematics on the program. And then I'm going to have a little bit of a fun today on this program. Something kind of silly happened, so I made up a little allegory. It's been many, many, many years since we have visited the little faraway place called Esoterica. We are going to have a little news segment from Esoterica, which we have not had in a long time. And in case some of you who don't know who Esoterica is, well, it's just this little faraway place. It's kind of like this little kind of country where crazy things can happen, kind of like, like the way Garrison Keillor has the news from Lake Wabagon. Well, today we'll have a little story from Esoterica, and that's that little faraway place not so long ago. So we have a cute little story coming to you from Esoterica, and then we'll have a little bit of the Where Are We segment. And then if we get to it at the end of the show, I kind of have, I have the same notes from Stephen Wright. I had a friend of mine from Mill Valley who sent me these funny notes about Stephen Wright, who is a eternal pessimist. And if I have time, I'll read off like the top 10, kind of akin to kind of like David Letterman. So we're going to have a kind of a fun show today. Not anything too wild or crazy, just something to make you relax. So maybe if you're watching this show during the Thanksgiving time or the Christmas time, you can say, hey, there's that goofy guy on television. All right. So having said all of that, we shall move on. Okay, now this day, I'm going to let me repeat it once again here. Okay, this show again is being shot on the 24th. I hate to date them, but sometimes I do. On the 24th, which is shortly before Thanksgiving. And of course, you all know that Thanksgiving is the all-American holiday where people get together and they gorge. And then some of the people who like French turkey, they will go and they will consume dinde instead of turkey. And then the rest of the turkeys will consume turkey. But the French people always will consume the dinde because they like it too. They like the dinde. Okay, so that's silly. So I hope that probably all of us are looking forward to on the Thanksgiving. And of course, we want to watch the Packers win again in Detroit and all of that. So we got always plenty to do here. So let's. I'm going to pose my little trig problem again. I got to get a little bit of science in, so I will start with the science, and then we'll do the Where Are We, and then we'll do our little Esoterica, which we haven't done in a while, and then if we have time, we'll do the Stephen Wright thing. Now, he said, starting out, yeah, finally, got to get into the show here. Now the last time I was on the show, if you can see this here, maybe that other camera is a little better for this one. I was helping my daughter, who was trying to learn trigonometry. And they had this rather interesting little formula that I was describing of how years ago they used this for finding distances of like high mountains and faraway places without having to go the whole distance to get there. Okay, and it's interesting to note how it would work is that you only would have to keep track of one distance over here, and then you only would have to shoot one point. You stand at some point here at the first beginning point and shoot some kind of an angle, like with anything. It could be a transit, or even you could even take a piece of paper really and just form, a square and form some kind of angle, relatively simple. And then you would move some distance that you could keep track of. Okay, and I'm going to give a little problem to you. Then you could walk some distance or drive some distance that you could somewhat keep track of, and then shoot a second azimuth to the high point of which you want to, estimate the height of, and then you use this little formula, and you're saying in the formula is that the h, meaning height, is equal to this distance over, 1 over the tangent of the first angle that you shoot. Like say your first angle ends up being, say, whatever, pick an angle, say 15 degrees, and then you walk and walk, and then your second angle is, say, 20 degrees. And then you just plug those in. And it's not really hard. But again, just in a kind of a vague form, you might not get it. So Watchwell was thinking of how I can try to stimulate my audience here to make someone really, kind of get off their couch and really try to do something. So I'm going to pose a problem or a question that some of my faithful Watchwellites can try. And I may even try it myself, and I can tell you my results, but I certainly invite my viewing audience here to give it a try. And I'm going to kind of give you a nice little simple problem that I think that any one of my Watchwellites could probably do without a great deal of difficulty. And here's what it is, okay? You go out on Highway N, okay? You go out on Highway NN to like where the new town hall is, like the golf course, okay? And you go to like the golf course, and then where the little Carmelo restaurant is. And you stand like a kind of some distance, and then you make your little imaginary azimuth to, let's just say, let's pick a height. Let's just say you want to pick a height to, like, say, what the top of the tower is on Rib Mountain, okay? Because as you know, if you go out to the ski hill, you go, and then you got the mountain, which rises, about 500 feet up, and then you got, that tower. So if you stand, like, say, kind of on the road-ish, and you go like this, and you kind of, make, again, you can just make some kind of little azimuth thing, estimate it to the faraway point, and then keep track of your walking. And a real good way to do it, I've always done this any number of times, is I always assume that as you're walking, it's about 30 inches to a pace, okay? So if you take 30 and you divide it by 12, it's approximately 2.5 feet per pace. So you pace off some distance, or however many. So then you say, well, whatever. So I say I want to pace off, depending on how much open space you have. So you say, I'll pace off approximately 100 paces. Let's just say 100 paces. So then you multiply that times 2.5, and that would give you the number of feet. Okay, so then that would be, in this case, that would give you the S, which is equal to, let's just pick a number. Let's just say 250 feet. Okay. And then by doing that, then, again, with your two things, then you somewhat come up with some way to trig out what you think your angles are. Like I said, you can even take, like, say, a real simple way just to take a level, and then a piece of paper, and then just kind of roughly do a thing at angle, and then measure it, the first and second angle, and that's kind of like your field work. And then you go kind of back to the proverbial drawing board, and then you can guesstimate that, say, if in fact you are standing where the golf course is or at the foot of the ski hill, then you can guesstimate how far it is from your level surface to, like, say, the top of the mountain and the tower. And my wild guess is that it would probably come out to be plus or minus 700 feet. But again, I'm just proposing that to you, so someone can take a crack at that. You have a little time, and then either mail it into my P.O. box or leave some kind of a message, and I can acknowledge that you did it, and I'll maybe even have you on the show, or if not, I'll give you my little thing. Again, that's my little scientific thing. So here's the formula again one more time, that this H is equal to this. Again, this is a little hands-on thing. See, science is fun when you can take, theory and turn it into something really hands-on. That's when it's like fun. When you're just reading just numbers and formulas and stuff, and it just goes, and you can't make that connection. See, then it gets kind of non-interesting. So that is my challenge to you, my little trig. I left it on from the last time, so we'll erase that on. Okay. So that takes care of that. And someone try that, or you can come up with some other way to do, maybe measure a tall tree or something. So that is my trig thing. Okay. So leaving that on, we take that. Now let's do a little bit of the segment of the Where Are We segment and get that out of our way. And then we'll have to move into it. Okay, so let's do kind of like our extended version of the Where Are We. Let me put on my spectacles. Again, it's always important to realize where we are. Again, if you're riding the planet, we're on the proverbial racetrack, and we cannot change our position. We can only be where we are and best recognize where we are, and then that's how it all kind of like makes sense. It's all you can do. Okay, so here we are one more time. Here's the proverbial racetrack of the planet, okay? And again, I said the show is being shot around the 24th of November. So we had over here, we had like approximately 9:21. So again, everybody knows the drill who watches this show. So it's approximately 3:21, 9:21. 12:21 is coming up fast because Christmas is coming. So we have like 9:21, it'll be 10:21, 11:21. So we're going to say 10:21, and we're going to say approximately 11:21. So we said the 24th. So as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, is that our planeto is now down here approaching the 21st, which of course is going to dictate the change of the season. So we are now down here, and also, let's see, the new moon. I'll get out my farmers all back in a minute, and it said that the new moon was on the 23rd in the year of our Lord, the 23rd of November, 2003. And I'll see what that means in a minute. So the planet is over here, the sun is over here, the moon was in front of the planet yesterday, so that's going to tell us that the moon was in a particular constellation, and we will verify the validity of that with my little gadget here. And then I'll say a little bit more about, again, a quick reminder of how this is starting to make sense with the change of season. So as you can see, we are only actually a little bit less from the change of season. And what that kind of means is you have this certain part where you get into what I kind of call a kind of like you start to enter the node, what I call the node phase. The node phase of your planet when I use my particular, you see me use my little simple harmonic analogy. And so again, so just think of it like a clock. So you're saying, like you think of like the Earth as a big clock going counterclockwise. Then it would be like, well, I can't use a clock analogy exactly because then you're going clockwise. But anyway, you just think of it like the rotational sense. So you're over here, but just remember that when you're down here, that's like, the change of season. So if I can quickly, let's see, kind of make sense out of here without getting into it too deep. I don't want to get totally into this. But what just getting into too deep is again, you see me use this business like this, okay? This kind of this trough phase where the beginning of the annual cycle starts at spring and then it goes around. Well, if you use this point here, like the bottom of the node, what I call the node point, is actually going to be what's happening on the 21st of December. So I said that we're a little bit away from that. So if we're going to use this analogy over here, then we're actually a little bit off this way, heading that direction. So what I'll do is I'll just take this little part here, and I'll just kind of make a little bitmap to see how that corresponds with this. So I'm saying, using that same analogy, let's just say that we are now approaching that trough line like this, okay? And then we're saying is that this is going to be 12:21, and so then we said that we are at 11:21, so we carry this across, boom, 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 boom. Then, like I said before, ladies and gentlemen, then our planeto is somewhere around here, entering what I called that little kind of node form. And that's always a kind of a strange time of the year because, again, what I always said is that everything seems to change very slow. The darkness seems to change. The sunrises and sunsets. Nothing accelerates, and so it ends up being a kind of a strange time pretty much between about the beginning of December until about the 10th of January. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're getting into that phase. But of course, that all couples, the same kind of atmosphere, the gravitational atmosphere. And oddly enough, also kind of, even though what I'm saying is that there's a kind of a weird gravity that takes place that time of year, just like it does around the 4th of July. But it's interesting to note that all of this energy is kind of coupled all with what, we human beings by tradition get to know as our holiday energy and, Thanksgiving and Christmas and all of that. But what I'm pointing out to you is that there is a certain energy of our planet on its particular track on the solar system. And we have no way of controlling it except just try to understand it. So again, it's simple. You can just sit there and say in one sentence, well, I guess it's going to be December. I guess it'll be Christmas. But then you also can think of it like the world according to Watchwell is something else too. Because riding the planet and understanding what's going on is your only best chance of surviving your life on this planet, because there aren't too many ways to escape from this planet. So there it is. Okay, so that was my little thing. I say I'm trying to think what else to say. Oh, I did one thing. One thing I was going to say. I was going to correspond. One quick thing. Let me correspond with what my little constellation with what it says in the Old Farmer's Almanac, real quick. Okay, so it did. So I said, okay, so we're going quick back. We just said that the Earth is over here, 11:24, and then yesterday was the new moon, the 23rd, and then it said that the moon was in the constellation of Libra out here. Okay, Libra out here, and it turns out that, of course, let me see. Can you get a close up on one of my little things here? I got this kind of set up here. Can you get a close up here? This is my little handy dandy, kind of little gadget that I made. My rotational thing. I'm waiting for my star camera person to get a close up here. Ooh, well, not bad. Okay, so and this I made this little thing, and what this does is this corresponds with like the moon phases in the Farmer's Almanac. So how it works is that I put a particular date here, and then this means where the sun is, and this is where the moon is. And according to the thing, it said that the moon just past the new moon on the 21st would be in the constellation Libra, and it's pretty close. So what it is, again, it's just another time where you have something that matches, your intuition matches reality. So there it is. Okay, so that's enough of the planet stuff. We got a little bit of the wild stuff. Now we're going to have a little fun. Now this is a kind of little, kind of off the wall. I'm gonna do. Once in a while, it gets a little weird. Once in a while, I'm gonna do something that I haven't done in a couple of years. A few years back, I had a little allegory about. It was about how wood was relating to taxes, and again, this went a while back, and I had this little thing called this little place called Esoterica. Esoterica. Yes, Esoterica. And that's kind of like a little faraway place, but not so long ago, but yet strange things, ladies and gentlemen. Very, very, very strange things can take place in Esoterica. And probably you have been to Esoterica, and you probably don't even know it. And probably some of your close friends have been to Esoterica. And I'll bet that if you went to college, and especially if you went to college in the 60s or the early 70s, you definitely have been to Esoterica more than once. So today's the day, ladies and gentlemen, on this little show being shot before the holiday season of the year of our Lord 2003. We're going to take a little trip to Esoterica. And the story that's going to take place today in Esoterica is a strange story indeed. And you wouldn't know, but it's called Rats in the Basement. Now that sure seems like a funny story, but the name of the story that's going to take place in Esoterica is called Rats. Rats in the Basement. Now, how could that have any bearing on anything that has anything to do with reality? Well, let me think about this. Well, I kind of have to ponder my thoughts here, kind of somewhat the way Garrison Keillor kind of ponders the stories that come out of Lake Wabagon, okay? The little stories in Lake Wabagon. I guess it's going to be something like that. So we've got Rats in the Basement. Well, on the surface, on the face value of it, you would think that rats in the basement are a bad thing. And ladies and gentlemen, you're probably right. In general terms, rats in the basement are usually a pretty bad thing. If you somehow get rats in your basement, you've got to get rid of the rats in your basement. No matter what you do, no matter who you are, you've got to do what it takes to get rid of the rats in the basement. You've got to get rat traps, or you've got to get poison, or you've got to do any number of things to get rid of those rats I mean, just if you get rats in the basement, you just, one way or another, you have to get rid of the rats. But there was this story in Esoterica where when someone had rats in the basement, it turned out being a rather particularly complex problem. Now, again, Esoterica is a very, very small place. It has very few citizens, kind of small. City government is pretty small in Esoterica. And there was one person who lived in Esoterica, and they had kind of I guess they were some kind of city official, and they had, some small position with some power and influence. But that was kind of like their regular job. They just, whatever, they worked at City Hall and they did certain things for the government. But then there was something that was taking place that very few citizens knew about in the town. And it turns out there was this lady who worked for the government who had, she had a very, 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 very interesting little side
Well, how did you get in
project.
there?
She had this rather big house, and of course, because she was in city government, the citizens of Esoterica would walk by and kind of scoff at the house because they would say, well,
This is the
why does she have a big house and I have just a little crappy house in Esoterica and everything else? And so in the basement of her house, she had this little special project. And here's what it was. She had in her basement little white rats. But then when you say rats, oh no, rats is bad. Well, it turns out these white rats were good rats. She had a little business where she had like little special cages, and she grew little white rats, just like some people would grow mink or chinchilla or some other little crazy things. She had this little special business of growing little white rats. And it turns out that she had the best little white rats in the world. And then you say, why do you want to have rats in the first place? Well, it turns out that in Esoterica, there was a rather kind of an important college that just wasn't just too far away that always needed the special rats for experiments. And it turns out that these little white rats that the lady who worked for the city government in Esoterica had were the absolute thoroughbred of the rats that were used for laboratory experiments across the whole land. I mean, that was it. They were the best white rats for the experiment. And then one day, hard times started to hit. It turns out that it happened in the winter time. In Esoterica, of course, there's a lot of snow, kind of much like Wisconsin, snow and cold. And that was when the dark brown, in fact, a lot of them were even like kind of like the black, creepy variety of the street rats started infiltrating the house. And I guess they got in the basement just like anyone gets rats in the basement. And they came in the basement and they started hanging around with the little white rats. And they started checking it out and they said, well, hey, this isn't so bad. Now, all I did is I just came in through the window and hang around, and all of a sudden they see these other little white rats, and they got nice little cages, and they're warm, and they got plenty to eat, and I guess they're taken care of pretty good. And besides that, they're really just pretty as heck. Why, these little white rats, why, they're just really pretty, and I'm just kind of a shaggy street rat, and wow, I think I could hang around there for a while. I believe I could hang around there for a while. Yeah, I could. So the dark brown rats started hanging around with the little white rats. But of course, the lady who lived upstairs never knew what was going on. And they started hanging around, and they started taking little pieces of food, and they started using the little comfort things that the little white rats had. And the worst thing that could possibly happened in not too long a time. And you can guess what it is that the street rats started breeding with the little white rats. And it didn't take long at all because, of course, the gestation period for rats is like mice. It's only about 6 weeks. And it didn't take long at all that the lady who was raising the little thoroughbred white rats was infuriated because suddenly the strain of her little white rats for the experiments was broken. Because once she called the university and she said that I now have rats that are spotted, well, the university didn't want them. And she tried as hard as she could to tell them, well, they're just as good as the other rats. In fact, now they're of the social diverse variety. Chances are they're probably even better. But as fate would have it, the university said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but we have our standards and we want only the white rats. So there's one last little leg to the story. So the lady who had for years was raising these nice little white rats. It was a nice little business. So she was so frustrated. One day she told a friend, and in complete secrecy, she told a friend. She said, "You know what? I've got rats in my basement, and they're black and brown, and they're breeding with my little white rats, and I just don't know what to do." Well, it turns out that the person who was supposed to keep the secret, they didn't keep the secret. And the news broke about the lady who was unsympathetic to the rats that came in and started interrupting her little breeding thing. And it turns out that she ended up getting no sympathy from the town. They said, well, we don't care about your white rats. We don't care about the black rats. We don't care about anything because regardless of what you do, we don't like you anyway. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the story from Esoterica. So the moral of the story is, how can rats in the basement create all these problems? I think we'll let it go. That's the story from Esoterica, that little faraway place not so long ago. I hear my music in the background. Bye-bye. See you later. Everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving and holiday month. We'll see you later, alligator. Bye-bye.